Hi guys, I'm Saba, I'm rated 2200 on chess.com, and if you know me, Endgames, I'm the part of the chess game where I'm stronger. So let's say I'm playing against a guy who is as rated as me and we get an equal endgame, I usually manage to win it. For this reason, I decided to create this new series, Endgame Master, with the idea of helping you guys with endgames. Obviously, endgames are really tricky, really difficult, but also they are so many, so different that there isn't a general rule for them, so we need to cover as many endgames as possible. So enough talking and let's jump into the game.
We're in the endgame now.
I know that this is not a Kings and Pawn endgame, but don't worry, I didn't clickbait you. But before reaching that, I wanted to explain you a really important principle in endgame. If you manage to master it, you are going to become an endgame beast. So understanding where to transpose into a certain position or not. In this case, I'm talking about transposing into a winning endgame. What I mean with this is that in this position there is a way to get a winning endgame trading pieces. Is not the best move, but talking from a human perspective, this is the by far easiest way to win this game. So what I thought in this position was, let's imagine that in this position, okay, we have this position, but we don't have pieces. So we don't have this, and also our opponent. We're just left with kings and pawn. In this position we have a 3 on 2 and our opponent has a 3 on 2. So this looks really equal, but I also think in this position, if we get this position but I also manage to win this pawn, this has to be winning. So I'm thinking about winning this pawn because as you can see I already have 2 minor pieces, and by the way we have 2 minor pieces for the rook in this position, same number of pawns. The third pointing on this pawn, which is also pinned. So my idea is that if I manage somehow to win this pawn and trade all the pieces, this has to be winning, because I'm going to have a pass pawn. Let's say you don't have this, black doesn't have this. I'm going to have a pass pawn. I'm going to have a 2 on 1 because there is only this pawn left. And my king is also close to the center, so is not going to get a lot of counterplay, so this has to be winning. So having said this, in this position I played the move that Stockfish doesn't consider the best, but is practically speaking the best move, which is knight take pawn on f7. So looks like I'm blundering a full piece for the pawn. Although the idea is that after you take, and also you take with check, but the idea is that I can block with the rook. The point is that this rook cannot move. This rook is pinned to the king, and I'm going to win everything at this point. So let's say even if you play b5, I'm just going to slide the bishop back, so I have zero problem. I mean, to be fair, I could even take. So after this happened and my opponent plays something, well, in this case I could have played king on f3, but anyway, this is still winning. I can trade all the pieces. So what happened? What happened is that I reached the endgame I was talking about. So a few moves ago, I saw the opportunity to transpose into a winning endgame and I went for it. So this is really important, guys. If you start understanding endgames, if you start understanding if an endgame is winning or not, you can transpose into it sometimes, as in this case. So this could be definitely really useful. Now, how can you understand if a king pawn endgame is winning? Well, if you're up a pawn, 99% of the time is winning. But if you want to be sure, 100% sure, if you manage to get into the center, preventing the king movement of your opponent, it has to be winning. So in this position, what I saw was, let's say I play this, you play this, we get to the opposition, so we prevent the king movement. If we get to the opposition, we can prevent everything. So let's say they play this, we get to the opposition. So I'm up a pawn, I'm preventing the king from getting into my position, and I obviously win. This is inaccurate and this +4, but I mean, I'm using Stockfish just, you know, to have, let's say, a second person that is giving opinion, you know, but don't think about it. Let's say this person is stupid. It's just saying random stuff. This is Stockfish. Don't think about it. This is imprecise, this wins. Don't think about it. I'm just using it because people are going to say, well, these are not the best move. I'm just saying this doesn't matter. These are the best moves for humans. So going back, having said this, we get this position. How can you win this? First of all, in order to win a position like this, we need to get in with the king to take control, of center squares. So first of all, I played king on f3 and my opponent replied with b5. Now, this wasn't the best move. Obviously, the best move was to centralize the king. So let's say he plays this. I'm going to play, well, king e4 is playable, but it's kind of pointless to allow this. I mean, doesn't really matter because we have h3. But let's say we have a similar position, but the king can actually manage to get in our position. Instead of doing this, just play this. Just play this, okay? So they can give us a check, but after they give us a check, this pawn is covering the square, so the king cannot get there. So let's say we play this, and you play this, I just win the pawn. Super easy. You play this and you try to defend the pawn, I get in and win these pawns. You're not in time to do anything, I have a pass pawn too. So I think this is the most practical way. But going back, my opponent replied with b5. Now, in order to win an endgame, you don't only have to think about your plan, to push the pawn, try to make a pass pawn and make a queen. You also have to understand that if you prevent all of your opponent play, there is no way they can win or they can even defend. So you also have to consider that if you give your opponent counterplay, they might have a way to win. So after he plays this, his idea is that he has a 3 on 2, so he definitely can create a pass pawn. If we manage to avoid this, he's not going to create a pass pawn, so we are the only one that are posing problems. And by the way, a 2 on 1 is faster than a 3 on 2 if you're wondering, because I just have to push 2 pawns in order to make a queen. You have to push 3. Okay? I mean, in this case, you could push them, both of them, and make a queen. But let's say the b pawn would have been a c pawn. You need 3 pawns. There is no way you can do that with 2. But even in this case, you still need the pawns, especially if you push these, which is a mistake. Because I have this move before, and before is so strong, you can't even understand how strong this is. With 1 pawn push, we prevent 2. So it's like being up 2 pawns in this case, because we are only up 1 pawn, and with 1 pawn we are preventing 2. It's like being up 2 pawns, basically. This is such a strong move, and that's why b5 was a mistake. You cannot allow this. You should have played, for example, instead of b5, I don't know, something like c5 maybe. Like, you don't want to allow your opponent to block your pawn strategy. In this case, I cannot do this, not only because I'm blundering the pawn, but because you could even push. And this is the problem. So, you play this, I play b4, preventing everything. Beautiful. Now, the king is centralized, and at this point, we don't want our opponent to get the king in our position, so we can just play king on e4. We get the opposition, which means that black now has to move, and we are perfectly fine. What can we do now? Well, at this point, we kind of solved any problem. So we could even start pushing the pawns and make a pass at 1. If you want to be careful, and this is the move I played, because you don't want to give your opponent any counterplay, you can play king on e4. The idea is that now you cannot push this. So if you cannot push this, you're not going anywhere. The only thing you could try in a position like this is a5. But let's say you play e5. I have 2 moves that works. a3 and pawn take. Pawn take, I just don't care. I can defend this. I have 1 pawn and the king against 2 pawns. I mean, you can defend this, don't worry. But let's say if you want an even easier way to prevent this, it is just by playing a3. What is the idea? First of all, if you take, this is prevented forever. You play this, I take with check, the king defends. GG. But let's say instead of doing this, you actually push with the idea that you are going to push and beat me somehow. You still have to understand that you cannot do this. Let's say push this pawn and you play this. This comes with check. So there is no way you can do this. And let's say I still keep pushing and you play this thinking you're clever and you're going to win anything. And you push. Not only I'm going to win this pawn, But let's say this happened. You cannot even win this. Because if you take, I'm going to make a queen. So this is the easier way, I would say, to prevent all of your opponent counterplay. Going back, let's talk about the position. This is the position. Our opponent now can't do anything, so he played a6. Obviously, this is obviously designable. My opponent decided not to resign, so that he gave me content for YouTube. So thank you so much. So in this case, what can we do? We have 2 pawns. Let's make a pass pawn. Easiest way to win, obviously. Let's make a pass pawn. Now, let me tell you something. Because you guys might play g4 instead of h4. So when you want to make a pass pawn, you need to be careful. Endgames are so tricky. You need to choose the right pawn. If we play g4, we give our opponent the chance to play g5. And as I said, this is the same concept of before. With 1 pawn, we are blocking 2. We're not only blocking this, we are also blocking this. So instead of playing g4, we had to play the move h4. This is crucial. So if you play h4, they can't play this, obviously. You can just take or even push the pawn, you win. This was the idea. Let's say you want to play h3. h3 is fine. h3 is fine. In this case, you can play this, but why to play h3 when you can play h4? You push the pawn 2 squares, up 2 squares instead of 1. So yeah, h4, and we keep pushing in order to make a pass pawn. Now, the best move, according to Stockfish, was to play this. Doesn't really matter. Literally doesn't really matter, because we can make a pass pawn. We use this pawn as a decoy, so our opponent has to win it if he doesn't want us to make a queen. And in the meanwhile, we can win all the pawns and make a queen on this side instead. We don't need to make a queen with this. We just need to use this in order to win everything. So we just make a pass pawn. Now we could take or push. Pushing is by far the best. Don't listen to Stockfish. Pushing is the best, and I'll tell you why. Because after this happened, you don't keep pushing. You just play g5, and my opponent resigned. So my idea is that after they play g5, this pawn is defended. So you need to be on this space, because the distance is 1 to 3 squares. So we build a square like this. And what happens is that if the king is on the square, can prevent the pawn from queening, otherwise we just make a queen. So after I play this, you have to stay on these squares. And in the meanwhile, I can definitely win everything with no problems. So practically speaking, this is the best way to prevent all of your opponent counterplay, because they cannot literally move. We don't even have to push this pawn, we just use these in order to win everything. So as you can see, endgames might be difficult, but if you understand the logic behind them, they can also be pretty easy. So I hope this video was helpful for you. If you like this series, please let me know in the comment and help me, give me a like and subscribing to the channel. So that's it for today, guys, and see you soon with the next video.